Marcelo, take it away. The floor is yours. Present yourself and present your all content about design to dev.
I'm going to share my screen because I prepare a little bit of a presentation. It's really cute though, but please don't make fun of me.
We won't.
Are you all seeing my screen? I don't know. Just give me a heads up already.
Yep, we can see your screen.
Hey everyone. So I am Marcelo. I am currently for the next 2 days product designer from Volkswagen, but I'm moving out for a senior position in Dentsu, UK. And well, I don't know. I've been working with product designer since 2018, more or less. So I had the opportunity to work with different front-end developers, PMs. My workflow and my process were kind of shitty at the beginning, but now I could get like a lot of feedbacks throughout the years and improve my process and my, organization. And which I'm going to show to you a little bit today is only about the UI handoff, basically, and the communication with front end, which is not the only important part about the UX work, but I would say that's a pretty important one, because if you cannot communicate to the developers everything that you planned, everything that you research, it's not going to work in the end, and your QA will be a lot harder than it has to be. And yeah, I think it was that the introduction. So let's go for it. Well, the way that I want this meeting to go out, it's not like something that I want to learn you, that I want to teach you, or I don't know, it's not like a course or something. It's just, like a chit chat where I'm going to show you how my process works, and then you can get me feedback and say, yeah, Marcelo, this doesn't work for me because of this and that, and then we can, change information. And I think this will be helpful for me and for you also. What else? Yeah, so interact with me within the chat as much as you can. It would be really nice. So every question that you have, just put it in the chat, and in the end of the presentation, I'm going to read all the questions and try to answer them. The way that is going to work, more or less a summary, is going to be, I'm going to say more or less, explain a little bit of the context about UI handoff, some pain points about developers. And after that, I'm going to show some assets that I use to prepare this handoff, the communication that I use. And I'm going to show an example about the actually handing off UI prototype. Just an example. I'm not covering all of the use cases, but you can get like the idea of how I work with developers and so on. So any questions before I get started, just put it in the chat and I'll see. All right, this is the handoff, how to ensure a smooth design. Handoff with developers. Very good. How does that work? So just a little bit of context about design handoff, what it is, what is that for. So I think everybody has more or less an idea about this. But handoff basically is when the designer or the team of designer hands off the UI implementation to the front end with all of the communication and behavior, and then it has to be followed. It sounds simple, but the process, it's very all about collaboration and communication between the designer, the PM, and the developers. And so what I'm going to talk here right now is the common pain points and the problems that developers and design they face when they're doing this process in the end of the design cycle. What are the problems right here? So I think the 3 pain points that we can assume that the developers are having is that the bad design and developer communication. So this is, I think it's very common in most of the companies. It could be due time. It could be due that they don't know how to work together. It could be that the PM or the work environment's not collaborating with this, and so on. This is very common for designers, a lack of developer mindset, because I don't know, it's not every designer has this developer mindset. If mostly if you just started work with design, you're just thinking about, like everything that you read, you learn about design, and you only thinking about your workflow, but you're not considering that people working with you, they have different workflows and they're not following your mental model. uh but the developers also don't have the design mindset, so this is kind of a both way gap. So having an idea and trying to understand how they work, how the development workflow work, it could be like really helpful. So uh, and also no design system. I think this is, for me, from the experience that I had, this is the biggest pain point that I had. So no design system, it's going to lead for sure inconsistency throughout your app. So, and it's not the design's fault, it's not the development fault, it's like the whole situation fault. But it's really hard to overcome because this kind of uh, behavior and guidelines and component, even component looking consistency is very time consuming. And if you don't have a design system, you will have to like overcome this problem with a lot of communication and a lot of like planned and unplanned work also. And how can we improve it, this biggest pain point that we had? So I think the first thing that we need is kind of establish some ground rules and some common understanding. And so when the developers get a design, they probably know nothing about the product. They don't know anything about the workflow and how this was planned. Most company, the PMs and the designers, they don't collaborate within this ideation process with developers. So when the material about all of the UI and behavior comes to the developer table, he's just like, okay, I don't understand anything of this, I'm going to follow everything that is written here or maybe in the user story. And designers, they probably know everything because everything that is being shown there, it was supposed to be planned by the PM and the design working together. So what was the problem, the scope that you were working, the different options that you had to choose one of the from. So you kind of know the design rationale behind the choices that you had. So for you, it seems everything like very simple because you're working on this workflow for like, I don't know, 1 month maybe. But the developers, they just have like some small points about this. They have an idea, but they don't know all the like the trade-offs and the rationale that we did. So our job, our responsibility is to share this knowledge and context with them. And their job in this part is to listen and absorb it, asking questions and so on. So at this moment, there are most problems. So I think the reason is that often like share misconceptions about each other's work, and the designers often think that the developer's job is like just develop what they create, and it's not really the way that it should be. Like it's a team, everyone should collaborate together and the communication should be like very clear. So here's just an example about situations that probably most designers and developers went through in their experience. So we also like tend to believe that developers are lazy and they don't do like good work, and everything that we've written, they don't read it, which is true in some cases. All right. So and in several companies, collaborating with developers, um, it's difficult, and these misconceptions about each other's work, they happen. Like we tend to see the developers are lazy, they don't do the work, and the developers tend to see the designers like just some people that are just bossing around, defining colors and defining where these components should be placed and so on. So, and here we can see like some points, which is really common for us to see. And it could be small, but in the end of this experience, it makes difference, like some padding, some, like roundness, the message that we're transmitting in one of the examples here is different from the other one. So, but for that, we need to understand that it's not just a minor change. So we cannot do it. They cannot like do it fast. Like when we communicate with them, when we show to them the UI that they have to develop, we have to keep in mind that it's not something that can do in 1 day or maybe in 2 days. So they have like their workflow, like they have to develop, they have to test that, they have, I don't know, to go for pull requests, and then they have to merge this code, and then if there's something wrong with it, they have to like redo this workflow again. So it's something that we need to keep working very closely so that this workflow is done in only one time. Like it's not something that it could take like a lot of time. It's not easy for them as well, and we have to understand it. So here I just got some testimony for a few friends that I have. I was asking them, so what are the most pain points for you as a developer and like a team member about the handoff with designers and developers and part of this workflow? And it could be like from simpler things, like it would be great if the icon source is written. So where is this icon? So where are you getting this icon from? Is that from our library? Is that from a different library? So this could really help me to understand where I can get this information from. Or more, like elaborated or different stuffs. Like for example, as a developer, I understand what the problem is and we're trying to solve, helps answer some of the questions about why I am building the thing that I'm building, which is very motivating for me. So this is another thing that we have to consider. We're not the team leaders, but we have to try to keep our developers motivated and engaged. So because if the people want or they are understanding why they're doing what they're doing, it's easier for them to, like wanting to work on this product, and like they have like the feeling that they have ownership about this as well. So they have inputs to give, so they are understanding the problem, so it's easy for them to have to give their opinions about this as well. So, and also includes QAs also in the design handover. If QAs need to test the screen, they also need to understand the workflows and the UX interaction. This is more or less like when you're doing like when you're handing off your workflow. I don't really use this, but some designers, they don't just design their workflow and do like with notes and notes. I'm going to show this a little bit later, but some of the designers, they just give the developers the interactive prototype. So I don't do this, but for the ones that do, it's easier if the developers have all these steps that they have to go through so that they can understand the workflow that they have to do. It's not just, like guessing where they have to click and so on, because we're not testing the prototype with them. They're developing this, right? So the next point is, so basically for us to understand and try to improve this workflow, I think there are two main or biggest mindsets. I hate this word, but it is actually a mindset. You have to change the way you're thinking about this. You have to tweak two basic mindset. The first one is like to change the way we think about handoff. So the thing is, most of people, they think about handoff as one way of work. Like just I finish what I have to do and then I give it to developers and then they develop it. But it's not the way that it should work. So here I have an example about a workflow that it's quoted by Brad Frost, that it's more or less like we should stop thinking about handoff as one-time thinking and start thinking about it as a process. Like, and here he gives like 2 different examples about the waterfall handoff, which is what most designers that I've seen are doing. So they design and they develop. This is more or less like a waterfall process. Doesn't really work nowadays. So, but there are a lot of people that are used to doing this way. It could work for some people, but it's not the proper way to do this. The best way or the easiest way to try to communicate this information is they call it a hot potato. So in the first week, the design says something to the developers, and the developers do something, and then they ask again, and the design, like this, it is a both way process. So I give a little bit for you, so you try to develop that. If you have questions, you came up to me, we can trying to find this together. If there's something communication missing, I can write this. So it's not something that the communication is cutted, And the second one is like giving others the benefit of the doubt. So which means more or less that knowing that people will make mistakes. So even more if you just start working together. So and you have to understand that, and you have to consider that people are going to make mistakes, and for this we have to stop thinking about the developers as like lazy people, as I said, and understand that there are persons that are working this project and they have their own pain and needs, and also help them to understand that designers are not just an evil lord, that change stuff whenever we want without like prioritization and so on. Because a lot of the developers, they have these ideas. They don't tell you that they have this idea, but you can, like feel that they have that. You can get feedback from other people within the team that they have more or less this misconceptions about design in general. Some PMs, they have this as well, but this is a different story. Okay, this was the final of, like the general presentation. It was not like really a presentation. It was more or less like a context thing. But if you have any questions or anything that you want to put in the chat, you can put right now before I start showing the actual process. All right, no questions so far. So
there was a question on Q&A that it's on the answered section, because I answered it, from Tanya, around the concepts of why just Handoff, why not involving developers earlier and having a better communication overall.
Yeah, well, in some of the projects that I worked, the lean UX talks about this a lot. Like if you get their the guidelines, or if you read the books about lean UX, they say that one of the pillars of the lean UX is not having much of the documentation, because all the communication has been done in the past. It could be that works. It didn't work for me very well when I tried this. So every time that I tried to involve the developers earlier in the process, it was really nice. It was really beneficial. But in the end, we had to do all of the documentations anyway, because if you don't do the documentation, sometimes you work in a, let's say that you will work, I don't know, in a checkpoint process where you go to the checkpoint 1, where you are defining the problem and scoping, and 3 months later you are in the checkpoint 5, where this thing is going to be tested. It's already being developed. Well, checkpoint 4, where the things are going to be developed. It could take like 4 or 3 months. If you don't have like a clear documentation, it's going to be hard for the developers to remember every rationale behind this and every step of the workflow and every like interaction or like requests that they had, and not considering if some of your developers leave the team, so you lost a lot of information there. So involving the developers in the early process, could be like in the discovery process or the scoping process, it is very beneficial. I did this, but anyway, I still do the handoff documentation, a lot of notes, and a lot of like stuff, links for them.
Cool. And there's another question on Q&A right now from Michaela. Do you feel the need to change your process from team to team? We have two developer teams in my company now, and they have very different profiles. One team really participates and one is very silent. How to adapt?
Yeah, you have to. I don't have the answer, to be honest. I don't know how you can adapt with different teams, but it's very sadly when team is not like engaged, or they have like different behaviors. They're not, they don't like participating about ideation sessions and so on. But I mean, this type of handoff process that I've been doing, it's been working for every team, because I write a lot of stuff, so I communicate with them. So it's very beneficial for the teams that want to collaborate, so they don't really need to see that, because they participate, they like they just consult the notes that I did. But for the teams that don't want to participate, or they are not like enough engaged, it's also good because everything is written there, like everything that was defined, it's already in the the handoff. So I don't know, it's time consuming. It's if you are like a one team designer, you are going to have to talk to your POPM, so you have to do this job like very carefully, but it worth it in the end. I think I didn't do this much as the beginning of my last project, and it was a pain in the ass to like redo these things afterwards.
Yeah, and I was gonna add that, at least in my perspective, different teams have different processes, yes, and even inside the same company, for example, you can have multiple design teams working with multiple development teams in different ways. But depending on the operation, you can even just go and structure the whole thing and find the commonalities of those processes, right? Like what Marcelo was saying in terms of documentation being available in the same format for everyone, basically, or having like a centralized way of documenting things, that can be achieved, that can be combined with everyone else, being the format, being the tools, being a bunch of different things. And then if really there is open or there's opening, or there's like a way to use what I usually would call champions of better experiences in the company from different groups, like get someone from each development team that is actually really into design systems and making things work, get them all together in a room, develop a process, share it with everyone, adapt it, and then deploy it. Gather feedback, make sure that it works, and then deploy it. If you look at the things, for example, that Spotify has on the ways that they work with their teams, and Spotify Design shares a lot of the documentation, they do that. They have ways of organizing their design team so that they all have a centralized process, and that then leads to having a centralized process to work with different development teams. And it's not impossible, but it's hard, and it really depends a lot on what you're looking for. It's very much focused on centralized goals most of the times. And if you don't have those goals, then that conversation is going to be harder. But if you have them, it's a great way to, or even a great design exercise, because you're designing a process and an organization so that it works better at collaboration.
Yeah, you probably would find someone that has more interested about design within your team, and those are going to be like your second hand within the team, your allies, what they call this within the team. So rely on them to try to like pass this engagement to other developers in the team. So yeah, I know that it's kind of difficult, but as Bruno said, it's very difficult, but it's not impossible. I think if you try to explain to them like the benefits of like having them within the early phase, I think most of the, from my experience, most of the developers, they want to be involved, but they just don't know how to ask you that, and they're not used to being involved in these kind of processes. So they don't feel comfortable because they're afraid of giving information that are not like design wise, so they don't want to give their opinions because they don't believe that their opinions are very good. Some of the developers, they just believe that they are developers, but they're really part of the team, so you have to like make them understand that they're valuable as well. And other stuff about designing is that I've seen people doing like video QAs, for example, for designers that like they don't read stuff. You can like record a video trying to explain to them a little bit. Or what I do nowadays is that before the ticket goes to the refinement, I have like a review session within this feature with the developers, and I record this. So if they need, we have this meeting, you know, like 15, 20 minutes reviewing session, so that they can, you know, like rewatch them, everything that they ask, and then I answer it. So it could help.
Yeah, that's really cool. And that's a great practice, right, really. And it comes to, again, communication.
Yeah.
And as Tanya is saying, most of them have super valuable inputs and contributions. Of course, like that's why we are teams of designers and developers. That's why we don't work just as one part of the process. Like designers have ways that they want to work to help build the products, but developers will have their own ways, and this collaboration is very important. Okay, last one before you can move on. Michaela just dropped a question saying, also any tips for when we spot the details missing in coding the designs, like round corners neglected, so that we are not just the bossy designers obsessed with details. How to tell them? I love the It's a nice touch. But yeah.
So, as I said, the developers, they have their workflow, you know? So if we try the same way that we're bringing them to the handoff and ideation process, try to participate about their process as well. Like in the hot potato, it works for the development as well. You know, like sometimes they're just, you know, like in their sandbox when they're starting to like developing the feature that you design, and ask them to, you know, like when you finish, before you move that to QA, can I just take a look on this one, so that if I need to change, you know, like some padding or anything, we can correct before you do stuff, you know? Like I think this could help. This could help a lot. Another, if you don't have a design system, it's going to be way difficult for you, like to keep this, you know, like properties. But I think if you need to correct something or change something, try to tell, they're going to be really happy with it.
Yeah, introducing design Q&A in the Q&A phase, like not just functional Q&A, but design Q&A.
Yeah.
If you introduce a formal process of Q&A, it just becomes easy because there's an agreement between everyone. This is the moment for feedback. So it's not about being the mean guy or whatever. It's about an accorded moment of saying, okay, here's what we change, and also the level of scope that you can give during those Q&A phases. Because I think one of the biggest issues is we tend to have very open definitions of Q&A, and many times we need to define, okay, we have enough time after this Q&A to fix X number amount of major mistakes, X number of amount of small mistakes. So let's make sure that we choose the ones that count. You know, so there's a compromise there, and especially when it gets to more corporate environments, I would say. And I don't know if you agree with me, Marcelo. It is very hard to do that in any other way other than that, because we tend to be part of a very heavy machine that wants to do a lot of stuff. So yeah, it is really, really hard to have. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. And is there any more question?
There's only a message from Karen saying, having worked as front-end dev for 2 years, moving to UX UI now, I can say it's great to be more involved. Sometimes I'd receive UI designs with some images instead of content I could properly inspect using Figma or XD. These things can be easily solved if designers and devs communicate well early in the design handover process. Yes, completely.
Very good.
Okay, Marcelo. Few questions have been answered. Now head up to the next phase. As for me, I'm actually going to drop off at this point because I need to leave. I know that my internet seems to be breaking, sorry. But Flavio will take over to help you with closing session. So I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the meetup. See you all soon.
Very good. See you, man. Bye-bye. Thank you. So yeah, this was just the reference that I got, you know, like to gather all of this information. I'm going to send in the chat right now. It's a little bit messy, but it's just one course, one video, and one article about handing off, which is really helped me a lot to, you know, like improve my process and so on. So thank you, Flavio. So let me stop sharing right here, which I'm going to move to a different screen, which has my Figma on. All right, so just explaining the process about handing off. I have my assets right here. So let me just move this for here. It'll be easier to see the chat. So the assets that I use are pretty simple. So all of the actions that I have, I mostly use this for desktop. If I'm using like mobile, I just use this one. I have the arrows when I'm going to tell them the workflow and the second workflows that I have. I have all my notes, like business. I divide my notes so that they have like the business requirement notes, so the layout notes, interaction notes, general notes, and like like little note right here. If I want to point note, like in different contexts. I have the status of my handing off. It could be that something that I have to do, in progress, or complete. And I have the markers. I have the few arrows that follows the notes, and I have the spacing for the inspects. If you want, I have this template where that is. It's about the design file setup. So I have the cover. I have some templates for presentation, latest designs, like the design handoff, what I have here, design create, sandbox, and with all of the components. I can share with you afterwards if you want. But let's keep going. So, and here I divide my handoffs in work streams. So I have this work stream where it could be, I don't know, give an example, I don't know, email, Google email, sending an email, and so on. So I don't know, Google email box. I don't know, I can't think about anything right now. So I divide them, every work stream that I have, that I'm working on, I divide them in use flows, core components, specs, and states. Sometimes I don't use states if I have like a design system very well defined. Sometimes I don't use specs. That depends on what I'm bringing to them, but I always have the user workflow. Well, if I'm changing a component, I probably don't have the user workflow. It could be like just the core, just specs, and so on. But those are, like the complete inspects, let's say, or, like sections that I'm going to bring them in the handoff. Yeah, I'm going to show what do you add in expect. I'm going to show right now. So the example that I did here is, let's say that I'm, like working in a recipes feed. That is my work stream right here. So in the user flows, I have 2 user flows for this feature right now. I have open recipe and I have sharing recipe. So those are the workflows inside this work stream, right? For the user workflow, what I have to do here is that, well, I just did some notes here. I'm going to read because I don't really remember them, but I have like a list of acceptance criteria that I have to put in my handing off. And here in the workflows, you can put like links about, I don't know, the user story that you're using, the link for the components, and so on. If you deliver to developers interactive flow, describe the Q&A section to be taken. As I said, if you're going, I don't really give them a prototype. So I just use prototype for usability testing. But if you do, just give them, like all these steps that they have to do. So here, the first topics, loading and empty states. How will a page look while the content is being loaded? So you have to include this in your what are we talking about? We're talking about, I forgot the handoff. You have to include this in your handout. So this is just an example about loading page. So this is after this will be loaded, is going to go for this page. Once I click one, I can open, and here just put notes about, like the layouts. The categories should be divided into context of the day. This information will be in the disclosure of the recipe. About interactions, the whole component should be clickable. When the user clicks in the image, should expand and go to the top of the page. And here, if I have like, let's say that if I click here, I would have like just, like small animation about opening the recipe. I put here the link of the animation that they have. I don't know, maybe I just did like a prototype and I record a video about this animation. So I give this link to them so that they can see how the animation should work. The other one is interactive elements. Include notes about what happens when the user interacts with elements such as button and inputs. For example, what disabled button look like? What happens to the user workflow and so on. So yeah. Other things, animations, what I just said, like when users select different contexts in the tabs, a small animation with the dots should be shown. Like for example, here, if I go for breakfast to lunch, this dot should be a little bit, like animated and so on. So everything is like very well described. So this one was very simple. But let's keep going. And here I just put like, this is the main flow, like this is how I get to the recipe page. So this is my main work stream, like working recipe. But here I just include some, like edge cases and corner cases that it could be stuff within this workflow. So for example, here is just nothing new. So when I scroll and I don't have any new recipe for this, this should happen, right? This should appear. When all of the unseen scrolled posts in the user feed have been viewed, the two show the feedback message saying that there is no more views. And then I can put here the when this should happen, right? This behavior should only be activated when more than 50 unseen recipes accumulated in the feed. And here I just added, let's say that this recipe here, you have the list of the macros, macronutrients, and then let's say that this pizza doesn't have any fat, all right? So if this happen, I need to like put when the recipe does not have any macros, the info available, the color and the text should be adapted. So this and this. So I need to show them all of these states about this. No internet connection, like error states, you have to put this as well. Here is just about the behavior, about the tags. So I have the tags here, the layouts. If there are more tags than the behavior, it must be attacked to the second line, stacked to the second line. If there's necessary to go to a third line, the rest must be added to a separate tag, which is this one. If I click here, you can see all the tags related to this recipe, right? And then it's just sharing recipe. So I go for the share recipe. If I click share recipe, it opens here. So here I put information when the user clicks in the share, the icon model should be activated. With all the sharing opens, use IP for the available OS. The model should be closed when the user clicks outside. Yeah, this is, I think you got the idea about all of the details that I put here and everything that has to be involved. You have to think about like error states, empty states, edge cases, like everything. So I put like, this is more or less like the list that I use, like validation error page, alerts, loading states, empty states, inputs, reset, if you have responsive states. This is something that I didn't put here because I was too lazy to put, like desktop and tablet layouts here. But if you're working in an app, it's all right. But if you work in a responsive website or a responsive app or so on, you have to give them all of the versions of the same workflow. You have to give them the desktop, the tablet, and the mobile with all of the breaking points well described. I don't know if they're using grids, it could be that's not really a need. But if they're not using grids, you have to describe to them all of the breaking points that they have to follow. All right. All right, so the use flow is pretty much covered. We know everything that we have to put here. You have to divide your use flows in the main flows, and then for each main flow, you have to break it in, like different edge cases and so on. For the core, I didn't do like everything, every component that I have here, but the idea of the core section is just to break it down in the core components that I have here, right? So for this workflow, for these two screens, I have the card as the main feed card as one of the main components, the core components. I have the actions, I have the tags, I have the post, and I have the macros here. Like you could also add like, like the image as one of the core components, but this I thought that this was like too simple to need any further explanation. Visual design elements is also another thing that you have to include if you don't have this in your guidelines. And then here I just use, like, I just described every core component that I have. You know, again, if you have a design system really well documented, you probably don't need this because you already have the page for each core component. But if you are building something from this design system, it could be that it's very helpful for them to understand the context. You know, like method card, where we show all the information of the Postmate. Here is just something that it should be the actions, but I put the wrong description right here. The tags, like classifying tags for the Postmate, the main post, which is right here, and the macros. So it's pretty much detailed and broken down about all of the core components that I have in this work stream, right? For the inspects, this is very important for them. And here I just include, I think it's like I break it down in three main stuff, which are the space and, you know, like margin and padding, all the notes right here about what components this is, what part of the design system this is. If it's not like a design system, you could just put in like the font that you, the typeface that you're using, and the size, you know. But here I just gave an example about, let's say that I'm using a design system, you know, like typography, mobile, H1. Components, mobile, tabs, small. Components, mobile, main card. So let's say that I have all of these components within my design system. The second thing is that I always put like the actual space that this component should take, you know, like, so this, let's say that this should be broken down in only 2 lines, and after, let's say that if the text is long, it should be truncated. So I need to put this information right here. So this is the maximum. Let's say that I have a text that doesn't go further right here. So this one, it doesn't need to go further, because the maximum that this is going to be will be like more or less like here, because it's the edge case. But let's say that all of them, they have like 100% of, it's impossible for them to have 100% of all macros, right? I think this one is already impossible. But anyway, but yeah, I just like prepare and explain to them every, it's not breaking point, but every spacing detail about all the text, all the image, where they have to go, where they define. That's why when you are designing, you have to take in consideration all the boxes that they are putting, because this is, it turns up to be a very important stuff when they inspect. You know, it could be that your design is like this, and if they implement like this, you cannot complain about this, right? So yeah, the same thing that I did here, you know, like icon share 14 pixels, icon close 40 pixels, typography mobile, the median tags, median secondary. Yeah, so this is more or less what I put in the inspect points. And I just include like accessibility. This is just the points that you have to take care about when you are doing this, right? So accessibility, information, and responsive design breaking points. So if you're doing this, it's going to be in the inspect as well. And the states here, I just put this in example, but I don't use this that much, because normally I'm not developing any new component. So if I'm working together with the Volkswagen design system guys, I'm probably doing this. But if I'm not working in the design system or a new component, I probably don't include this, because we don't need, right? So yeah, so I just put these states of this. So the default, and when it's pressed, you have like, yeah, a little bit of transparency right here. Here's the same. So I just give an example here and an example within the layout. Give an example here and an example within the layout. Yeah, default and press. It's time consuming. I just gave like a very simple example. It could be that you have like different work streams with different use flows and bigger use flows within this, but it's very time consuming, as you can see. So it's not something that it could be made like in 30 minutes or, I don't know, 40 minutes. It's something that it needs to be revised, and you have to present this to your developers. You know, like they have to understand every small stuff that you have here. And sometimes I also include, so let's say that I'm explaining to them why I put the whole card as a clickable and not just the text or not just the image. So I just put a note explaining to them why I did this, because I don't know if it's a reality for you, but the design role is something that we need to be proving ourselves. Otherwise, they're going to be asking stuff. Why do you do this? Why do you do that? Why do you do this? So every time that I kind of define this, small stuff, and I have the rationale behind it, I explain to them, because if they want to ask about this, they already have this image. But normally it's just, some articles that they don't really read, but I also put it here so that if I have to prove it or explaining to them, it's already here. And probably I already did this with my PM. So all of the notes that I have, it's already, ready. It's just to, paste here for them. Yeah, so this is more or less my process and how I break down these different sections within the handoff. And I don't know if you have any questions or suggestions. That could be really nice. I'm going to share the template with you so that you can use this if you want, and where you have the different components right here. So if you want to use, you have everything right here. That's it. I don't have anything else to say. Well,
Marcelo?
You don't have. Oi.
I'm here.
Very good.
Let me just turn my camera. Hello. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
I'm fine. Great presentation. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Actually, I was not participating because I'm taking care of an end-off process right now. So I'm preparing everything. Still working.
Don't worry.
But yeah, any questions for Marcel? You can use the Q&A or the chat because we are here now, so you can just do it.
I'm going to stop sharing anyway. Very good.
All right. You always do the end off like this on the file?
Yeah. So while I've been doing this for it's not something that I've always done. It's something that I improved in the last 6 months. I kind of have the same process, but the detail, it was not that good, So I was missing a lot of stuff, and I was kind of, okay, I need to improve this, because I know that I'm having a lot of, pain points with my developers, a lot of problems. So I include, from the last 6 months, what I included was those development Q&As, design Q&As that I didn't really have. We kind of usually was doing this, but it was not something from the process, defined in the process. So we kind of defined this, and then I improved a little bit my handoff, because I was feeling that it could be better. It was just 2 ways to improve this.
I'm doing the same. Usually I do on the file small thing. I never had a structured components like you. I have a few components just to notes and stuff and do the flows and everything. But right now I'm moving everything to Zeppelin and trying to learn it a little bit. Still getting the gist of it. Not a pro yet. But I'm liking it. It's cool. You can use the components from Figma, all the variants and stuff. So I think it improved a lot. I used Zeppelin 5 years ago or something, and it was just the spec from Figma, stuff like that. But now it's much better actually, and I'm trying to make my end off better, because I work in a 2 developer team. I'm the 3rd developer. I do some CSS and stuff, and React. I do all the review inside the project directly in CSS and on the GitHub. So now I'm just introducing Zeppelin with one of the developers. Is the junior one, but it's going good. You need to start slowly. Yeah.
I was thinking about starting using Zeppelin, because they have a good versioning stuff, you can do branches, and it could be very well organized. But I don't know, so far I don't need this, but I'm really considering to do both, doing everything right here and pass everything to Zeppelin.
Sure, you can. And they have flows now as well, and you can do the documentation down
there.
Yeah. So it's cool. I think it's a really good tool. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I really like is the commits. You can have like a commit message like the developers are used to, and you can see what's changing in the version.
Yeah, this is really nice.
But yeah, pretty cool. Okay, guys, you don't have any questions? I can leave here our website from Friends of Figma Portugal. You can, if you're not on our Slack community, you can join it. You have the join our Slack button there. You have we have a few videos from previous sessions that we did, and we have more events going on right now. I can share you also our group on Friends of Figma that you can just and you can subscribe for the next events. Let me just copy here. One moment, sorry. Okay. Portugal, yeah, this is it.
We just had a question right here. Like, do you guys recommend using zero height? I never used this, to be honest. What is this? Is something?
Which one? What it is?
It seems something.
What is it? It's on general. It's on the chat. No.
Yeah, it's on the chat. It's on the chat. Like Roger.
What it is?
I use the right to document the components, but I missed the code bit of it.
Zero height. Okay, I heard about it. Never checked it actually, but I heard the name somewhere.
Yeah, I probably heard it as well. I think they have like competitors also. The Volkswagen were thinking about like these, like getting these tools, but I think none of the designers they really needed this. You know, like I don't know. I don't really know. It could be that it could be very helpful, but I don't really use it. I never use it. Never really had the need to use it. Yeah. Others in Volkswagen it's pretty difficult to get. You know, like tool approving is very bureaucratic. So only things that I really need.
Yeah, I was really lucky with Zeppelin because they have like this like campaign for NGOs, and I worked for an NGO, so it was cool. They gave like 6 months for free. Not bad.
6 months for free. That's very nice.
Yeah, exactly. Pedro has a question here on the Q&A. Basically, it's just asking what happens to the files after the end of. They go to the special place.
So no, I have this part of the handoff, and what I do is normally I get a print screen of it, I put it in the tickets, so they have like the images of the handoff, so it serves as a documentation. But right now I have a different Figma file only for the past handing offs, you know. So I have all of the tickets, I put a link in the tickets, and if they need, it's going to be in the ticket. So I kind of prepare the handoff and I put it in a different Figma file, where I have like, you know, everything that is really done. I don't put anything in this Figma file that is not already being locked up, you know. So it's more like my file documentation. I keep doing this on Figma, and for the other stuff, I just keep doing this in a. You could do like you could organize it very well within your, you know, the same documentation, but I think it gets heavy really quickly, you know. So that's why I put it into. I could like put in the same documentation, but in like 6 months, you would have to pass it to another file anyway.
I think we have one more question from Katerina. What's been the overall feedback from devs since you introduced this system?
Really nice. It was really good. That's why, well, I think most of they don't really care much about the workflow because I was doing this already, but the core and the inspect, it was really helpful for them, because at the beginning I was like, my assumption was that, okay, so they go for the inspect tab in Figma and they have everything, right? So, but when you put like the paddings in a different color, I don't know, because they don't really, at least my designers, they don't really, the Figma has a very good feature where you can go for the inspects and you can actually copy the code, right? But my developers, they don't really do this. They just, like check the paddings and they go like, like they do this by hand. So
yeah, the node is not really good. And another thing that's lacking on the inspector from Figma is the variables. For example, it's a common thing to have like variables for spacing. I'm using right now in the project I'm doing. And for example, Zeppelin, you have like variables that you can lay out variables and stuff you can create. And when you're like overing the spaces, it just show you which variable you can use. That's really cool as well.
Yeah, it could be for this, probably.
Yeah.
That's why I got the good feedback.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, there's a lot of ways to do things. The key here is just talk to your devs and come to a conclusion what you can do an agreement, and just help them do the job.
Yeah,
and they will help you for sure.
But this feedback that I got from my dad was like, man, is that something that I can improve in my Handoff? Is something, and he was like, man, it would be really nice if you could just tell me where I can get this icon. I was like, man, we've been working, we've been working, I don't know, almost 1 year together. Why didn't you tell me that earlier? So it's just, like, why don't you say, like, Marcelo, can you put the link? I don't know. I had to ask.
So easy. Just a small thing, but it can save a lot of hours in the
exactly.
in the end.
Storybook. Right. That's the tool. That's the tool that I was.
Oh yeah.
That I was.
Yeah, I use it too for design system. I'm just starting implementing because I need to code everything there. It's not really ready yet, but it seems really cool. And the best part I was saying on the chat, I can integrate it with Zeppelin, and that makes everything much easier.
Yeah,
let's see.
Really
there's a lot of tools. Everything is happening so fast. You have new tools every month. So
yeah, exactly. So yeah, now that I'm moving company, I'll probably have to understand how the developers that work. So I don't know. It could be that I changed a little bit. It could be that I'm using Zeppelin. I don't know.
Yeah, you'll learn for sure. Always learning. Okay, guys, if you don't have any more questions, I think we can end the session. Marcelo, thanks a lot for the presentation. It was really nice, and hope to see you again soon.
Probably in the next meetups that we're going to have here. I'll probably be there. No worries.
Exactly.
And guys, I'm sending the link for the template. I don't know if you can duplicate it. I don't know how can I share something?
You can share on the community if you want. If you don't want to share for everybody, of course, you can just share put it on drafts or something, I think, and we can share it on the email later, like I forgot the name. We can send an email for everybody that attend the event, and they get the link in there. So I think it's easier. I can help you with that.
Well, help me afterwards anyway. I don't know how to do this.
We can talk, no problem.
Thanks, man.
All right. Thanks everybody that been here. I'll hope to see you next time.
Yeah, thank you everyone. If you want to reach me on LinkedIn, just like Marcelo Gomez, I think. Marcelo Henrique, I don't know. Just look in the Friends of Figma community. You probably can find me there. And yeah, if you have some feedbacks or some things that you want to say, if you want to say, oh, Marcelo, your presentation was not that good, I just didn't want to say that in the chat, you can, reach me out. Don't worry. See you guys. Thank you.
All right. See you guys.